are here at TEDx Manhattan, and we are talking to Tom Colicchio. Thank you so much for being here. So we're talking about food policy today. Tell me a little bit about where food policy is, sort of since your documentary came out last year, A Place at the Table.
Well, I mean, not great. If you look at the Farm Bill, I think the food movement got some modest gains.
Yeah.
Definitely some help in organic farming and farmers markets, and the double bucks program. So there were some really great things that happened. But when you cut $8.9 billion from the SNAP program, it doesn't feel good. And so what happens is, I think you take progressives and kind of split them down the middle. People who care about food and people who care about hunger just kind of had to end up with this sort of bad bargain that we had to make, and so it's tough. I think you're starting to just see the beginnings of a movement of people who sort of understand that grassroots is great, but all these decisions happen in Washington.
Right.
And so you have to sort of get in that business, and you can't be afraid of it, and you have to embrace it. And even though our political system seems to be broken, it's what we have.
Right.
And so you have to work through it, and we have to sort of make our elected officials do what we want, and we send them to work. And so, I mean, obviously we have powerful lobbies that are against us, but we have to create lobbies as well that can work against them. So. And
for a lot of people, I think there's this feeling that there are foodies, there's people who are into food, but they don't necessarily know a lot about the food system. What should people know and start reading about if they care about eating organic or eating antibiotic-free, but they don't understand the system as a whole? Well,
I think, listen, there are a lot of good people that are doing wonderful things that you can read. There's plenty of books out there. You can read, Marion Nestle's blog, Food Politics. That's great. Yeah. You can check out what Dave Murphy's doing at Food Politics now, or Civil Eats. These are all really good websites that are aggregating, policy news and food news. And so if you, there's the information's out there. It's a matter of just educating yourself. It's also a matter of realizing that it's more than just what you're eating in a restaurant, or being a backyard griller or something like that. Right. Your food comes from somewhere. And so if you're supporting companies that have bad practices, you're actually just kind of feeding into the sort of the broken food system. And so you have to really educate yourself so you can make really great choices. And you've been a huge advocate of SNAP, or a lot of people know it as food stamps. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about food stamps, and especially with the new Farm Bill. What is your position on enhancing SNAP? I agree. We should actually have been looking for enhancing SNAP, not actually cutting SNAP. If you look at what SNAP does, it actually keeps people from being in poverty. The majority of people who receive SNAP have at least one family member working. So this really takes care of the working poor. People who receive food stamps are usually only on food stamps for 9 months, and that's up from 6 months because of the recession. Typically the year before they receive food stamps they're working, the year after they're working. And so this idea that we're creating a culture of dependency it's misinformation. Yeah. And it's misinformation propagated by people who just want to cut, and they really don't care. And so also I think we need to change the conversation. This is about an investment. This isn't about an investment in our children. If our kids show up to school hungry, they can't learn. Right. There was a study recently done by Deloitte No Kid Hungry, Deloitte sponsored by No Kid Hungry, that kids who actually get breakfast after the bell, the math scores go up by 17%. And so nutrition plays such an important role in education, and yet we're ignoring that. And so if we know that education is the key to upward mobility, and yet we're making sure that the kids who are most affected by poverty, they don't have a leg up because they have poor nutrition, we're never going to get anywhere. Right. And so what can people do? I mean, you talk about a food movement and how it's fragmented. People care about one issue or the other, but how do you think people can come together, and what can they do? Well, listen, that's why we started Food Policy Action. We have thought leaders from across the entire food spectrum who are coming together to sort of share our values and our views, and sort of to support each other. And so, hopefully that's a start. But I think we have to just hold tight and realize that someone who cares about labeling GMOs, or cares about ridding antibiotics out of the food system, or cares about farm welfare, or even animal rights, we all pretty much share those values. Right. And so we have to band together and create something bigger. And I think too often everybody sort of has their own sort of little thing that they're working on, and we're in our silos working, and we're not sort of seeing the bigger picture. And so I think you're going to start seeing a lot of these organizations actually coming together and working together, either sort of collapsing and forming larger groups are actually just creating networks where we can all start working together.
And what's the web address that people can go to learn more?
Oh, foodpolicyaction.org. That's you can see our scorecard. We're grading Congress and how they vote around food issues, so you can see how your legislator is doing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.